What if I told you that there are some dark truths behind why men are so focused on the sexual so early on? What if I also told you that with an understanding of what these truths are, it would make it so much easier for you to spot the men who are unserious instantly? If that sounds like information that you want to know, I have good news for you. On today's show, we're going to be discussing why men get too sexual way too fast. That way you can avoid the men who are trying to play tricks on you simply to get what they want from you. We need to talk about opportunity. So men are not necessarily trying to ruin your life. But what is happening is that in the process of them meeting you, there is an opportunity there to get something and extract something from you. Let's imagine you have a fisherman, and this fisherman is going to cast out this large net, right? That the fisherman is going to cast out is meant to obviously catch all of these little fishies. I don't know how to draw fish, so we'll just draw them real weird, okay? What you want to understand is that in the process of doing this, this fisherman will miss some fish. There will be some fish that are too small that slip through the net. There will also be some fish that are like huge sharks, okay? Huge sharks with huge fins and things like that, right? And they are whales and things like that, and they don't get caught within the net. And so as this fisherman casts this wide net here, he understands that some of these fish will not get caught. But the fisherman is not concerned about the fish that do not get caught within the net. The fisherman understands that if his net and his strategy and his casting placement is good enough, he will always be able to gather a certain amount of fish, okay? It's guaranteed. So you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with my relationships, or why men are so focused on what's in between my legs instead of focused on our relationship? Well, here's the thing as it relates to opportunity. See, men are actively looking for the easiest opportunity, right? And the next opportunity, because they want to expend the least amount of energy while getting in return the absolute most amount of benefit. So what you need to understand is, if they're looking at you, right? You're not a fish, but if they're looking at the situation in the similar concept where I cast the net out, meaning I attract a certain type of woman by validating her a particular type of way, by love bombing her, by telling her how much I want to be with her, by telling her how special she is, and saying all the same little tricks that I do on everyone else. I cast this net. Now, some of these women will be part of the Players Club, so they won't fall for any of this stuff, okay? Some of these women will be like these big sharks. Someone said in the YouTube chat, Kashmani says, I'm a big shark, right? Some of these women will be like big sharks. They don't fall for the stuff. They're not going for none of this. But some of these women that aren't part of the Players Club, that don't know what's going on, that are a little bit more naive and a little bit more vulnerable, they will get caught by this wide net that these men are casting, where they're essentially looking for the right type of woman to get an opportunity with. And in this case, this opportunity is the ability to sleep with you. So what I want you to kind of start understanding is that even though there are good men and there are bad men, and there's lots of men in between that, men are always looking for an opportunity. Whether it be an opportunity in the sense of being able to sleep with you, or an opportunity in a more vague sense, platonic sense of being able to extract something from you. It can even be girlfriend treatment. So you have to protect yourself against the understanding that men will come into your life simply to extract, because they have the opportunity to extract. And you never want to lose sight of the fact that men are looking for opportunities. Do not turn yourself into an opportunity by being someone that falls for all of the simple tricks, that when he casts his wide net into the sea, you get caught up like all the other little fishies, okay? We want you to be aware. We want you to be knowledgeable. We want you to be intelligent and understand that this is what the men are trying to do. That way, when they approach you with a certain particular type of approach, you can understand that this is what is happening. For number two, what I want you guys to take notice of is the fact that men are going to test you. And it's also going to happen with the men that you actually think are good men. they're going to test you too. Let's imagine when you were a child, your mom would be cooking, and whenever you would go around that stove, your mom would say, hey, don't touch that pot. It's hot. It's going to burn you. But you're a child, so you don't really understand what it means when she says it's going to burn you, it's going to hurt, don't touch the pot. But what you do know is when she says don't touch that pot, what's the first thing you start thinking of? Why don't you want me to touch that pot? Why are you trying to stop me from touching that pot? Now I'm curious what it's like to touch that pot. And I actually fell for this as a child as well. And so one day, as you become curious and your mom's not looking, you remember her saying, don't touch that pot, don't touch that pot. But you start thinking to yourself, well, what happens if I just touch the side? What happens if I just touch the underneath? What happens if I just touch the bottom of it? And so one day you finally touch that pot. When you touch that pot, your skin starts sizzling and you're like, oh my God, you're a child, right? So you've never experienced pain like this, and you start feeling that tingling feeling in your fingers, right? And you realize that when you touch that pot, there is pain associated with that. And in the process of you experiencing that pain, that is the only way you learn your lesson that you shouldn't be touching that pot ever again. So your mom no longer has to tell you, don't touch that pot every time you see it on the stove. Now, through your own experience, you validated that, yeah, when I touch that pot, I'm gonna be in pain. So the reason I say this is because for men, you have to understand when you tell them things like, right, when you say, I'm not sleeping with you, and you tell them this is not happening, we're not doing this, we're not gonna do this, I'm not like one of those girls. He's not then immediately just gonna say, oh, because you said so, because you're not like one of these other girls, because you're so different, I'll just accept that and I won't try. What's gonna end up happening is much similar to when someone told you not to touch that hot pot. He's still going to attempt to test you and see, are you really about what you say you're about, right? And so when you say you're not going to sleep with him, right? Let me separate this so you guys can see, right? When you say that you're not going to sleep with him, he's going to still end up trying to test you, right? Because he wants to know, if I test you, do you actually mean what you say you're about? So in the beginning of your relationships, right? Remember, the men are looking for an opportunity. So even though you tell them in the beginning that there is no opportunity to sleep with me right away on the first night, they're still going to be testing their luck to see if this can be one of those opportunities. Remember, men are not just experiencing you in a vacuum. They're also experiencing you in the context of experiencing all the other women in the world. And unfortunately, we don't yet have all the women in the world watching the Players Club, meaning not everyone has the same level of knowledge that you have. Meaning that the men who are dating you have actually become accustomed to being able to meet women, have those women tell them that they're so different from all the other women, and they're so much more special, and they're not going to do this and they're not going to do that. Then once they say that, those men apply some pressure, you get them feeling good, you say the right things, and then they realize that none of those women who talked a big game were actually willing or capable of walking a big game. And when they realize that, then they eventually say, oh, well, that's just a woman thing. That's just an every girl that I meet type of thing. They're all going to say that they won't do it. But when I massage it, when I make her feel good, when I set the right mood, she will eventually forget everything she stands for, forget everything she said she was going to do or not do, and I'll have my way with her. Now, I know that this sounds really malicious, but I do want you to understand it comes from a place of being an opportunist, meaning they will take advantage of a situation if the situation presents itself as being able to be taken advantage of. Soul control. Let's say you are here and you have, let's just say, far friend. You know how you have close friends? This one is a far friend, meaning this is like an acquaintance, okay? Let's say in the process of, just circumstances and situations, you and this friend meet at some event somewhere. And this friend starts having a conversation with you, and this friend asks you, says, oh, I just want you to know I'm going through a really tough time now, and I would really appreciate it. I know this sounds really awkward. I know we haven't talked in a long time, but I would really appreciate it if you were to borrow me $1,000. And this friend says, I really could use it. I just want to do this thing and I have a work thing and you've got some extra money. You're balling, okay? You're doing well for yourself. So you're like, you know what? I know we haven't talked for a while, but we went to the same high school and I think you're a cool person and I want to see you win. If you say you need $1,000, but you know, you can pay me back and things like that, sure, I'll give you the $1,000. Now, something interesting is going to happen after you borrow your far friend, not your close friend, your far friend $1,000, right? So before, you weren't really messaging this person, weren't really FaceTiming them, weren't really calling them. But now all of a sudden, because you have sent this person $1,000 that you're eventually hoping to get back, all of a sudden you're going to check in. You're going to be checking in on this far friend because you kind of want to know what's going on in their life to get a gauge of whether or not or when you're going to be getting that $1,000 back, okay? So you're going to be checking in. You might be messaging, right? You might be calling, and someone who you originally went from being someone who you weren't really talking to and weren't really communicating with because it didn't really matter. This far friend was pretty inconsequential to your life and your future. Okay, nothing wrong with that. Not everyone's going to be in your close circle. All of a sudden, simply from $1,000 investment in this human being, you're now actually concerned with what's going on in this far friend's life, okay? You're concerned not from the standpoint that you really care about this friend, but you care about this friend's life as it pertains to you getting your money back. So the reason I give you this example is because I want you to understand there is a level of control that men will take over you as soon as they sleep with you, which is actually, ironically, part of the reason why men will emphasize sleeping with you so early on. Because remember, I told you, they're opportunists. So there's an opportunity to have someone at your beck and call that you can take advantage of and get to do what you want them to do without having to invest in them if you have control over them, right? Or if they have, or if you, sorry, you meaning him, has something that you want. Now you're probably thinking, well, wait, but if I sleep with him, I'm not really, I guess I'm sleeping with him, but then he doesn't have anything of mine. Like, why would it matter afterwards? Well, see, here's the thing. Once you sleep with the man, you're not necessarily giving him something like a gift, but you're giving your soul to him. You're giving your soul to him and your spirit to him through the exchange and the transfer of energies that happens when you sleep with someone, okay? If you're not a spiritual person, you're going to learn to be spiritual when you enter the Players Club because that's what's happening when it comes to relationships and intimacy. Okay, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. So you're giving your soul and your spirit to that man. That's what you're giving him. But the problem is this is like an investment. Are you following me now? So just like in this analogy, where as soon as you gave someone $1,000 that really didn't matter to you and matter to your life, all of a sudden, simply by you investing in that far friend, all of a sudden now you care to check in, you care to message, you care to call, and you're concerned about what's going on in that far friend's life because you have put some investment that matters to you into that human being. So the same thing applies in your situation when you sleep with the man. As soon as you sleep with him, you're putting in investment, obviously not monetary, but spiritually, into that man. And when you put that investment into that man, all of a sudden he becomes more important to you. You're concerned with what's going on in his life. You're concerned with calling him and messaging him and checking in on him. And remember, if you're this concerned with this person, if this person all of a sudden matters to you because you've given them $1,000 or what's worth more, your spirit is worth way more than 1,000, but you get my drift. Once you invest in that person, now they have control over you. Because take notice of this, right? This far friend here in this scenario and in this analogy no longer has to do any of what? Any of the messaging, any of the calling, any of the checking in. Why does this far friend not have to do any of that? Because you're going to fill that space for them. You're going to fill that space for them because you want something from your far friend. You want your investment back. Are you following me? And when you sleep with men, you give them parts of your soul and your spirit, and you don't want them to run off with your investment. So take notice of the exchange that's happening when you sleep with men. And if that exchange is happening and then he's getting all of this power and men are opportunists, no wonder why men are in a rush to gain as much power as they possibly can. Because the quicker that they gain power, the quicker they can position the relationship into the dynamic which is ideal for an opportunist. And the dynamic which is ideal for an opportunist is you invest and give to me while I invest and give you nothing. That way, I can take my energy back for myself, also have you give your energy to me, and I can take that excess of energy and go do other things with it, whether it be chase around other women, whether it be, go and play video games, whether it be just build up my own self-esteem, right? Men take that transfer of energy from you, right? And then they're allowed to go and do whatever they want while still having control over you. Because now that you've given that investment to him, you don't feel like you can just allow him to walk away. So that becomes control, where he can now get you to follow him around and just keep, waiting for something, waiting for his investment, waiting for his time, waiting for his attention. And in the process of that, he gets to take that energy and focus and he gets to go and invest it somewhere else, okay? So in scenario number one, let's say you're here and the man is here. And in scenario number one, let's say the two of you have been dating for 1 week in scenario number one. Now, in this process, right, there's nothing wrong with dating. You have to meet someone. They all start as strangers, right? But when you start dating him in week number one, what's going to happen, right? You're going to be building your relationship based on only knowing someone or spending a week with them. So what are some of the things you might do if you've only been dating someone for 1 week? What are the ways you guys might interact, okay? Let's say you phone call after work, okay? Share gum, whatever. You've been dating a guy for 1 week, you share gum, you drink from the same glass or something weird like that, okay? A little bit more innocent. But if you've been dating for 1 year, right, you might do something like borrow his car, go to his family events, okay? And I really mean like the family events that are supposed to be just for his family, as if you're part of the family. Now, the reason I bring this up, and I want you to kind of take notice of this, is because there is a difference between what it looks like to date someone for 1 week versus what it looks like to date someone for 1 year. Now, that sounds pretty straightforward, but here's the thing. See, if our relationship lacks substance, meaning it lacks depth, and I'm not talking about depth like going deep inside you, I'm talking about depth like emotional depth. If our relationship lacks depth because we've only been together for 1 week, what is one of the easiest ways, if I'm a man and I'm an opportunist, can I make our relationship feel like it has more depth than actually just dating for 1 week? If I can get heavy on this emotional intimacy, right, and make you feel like we're having a really strong, deep bond and connection, then I can start to make you feel like I've been dating you for 1 year. So even though it's only been a couple of weeks, but you feel like we've been dating for 1 year, what are you willing to do now? You're willing to invest in me and do things for me that you wouldn't otherwise do because it would be inappropriate to do that if you were dating someone for 1 week, okay? Nothing wrong with dating someone for 1 week, but there are certain things that become inappropriate if you've only been dating them for 1 week. You might let your boyfriend borrow your car if it's been broken down and he has to get to work if you've been dating him for 1 year. You're probably not going to let that same man that you just met a week ago borrow your car. And so there are things that are appropriate and inappropriate based on the timeline that you've been dating that person. But remember, if the men are opportunists, meaning they're here for an opportunity to cast that net and catch the fish who don't watch the Players Club and don't know what's going on, and I can make that fish that I catch feel like we've been dating for a year, what do I get? I get more investment. And what does that lead to? As you give more investment, I get more control. That's the soul control that we just talked about earlier, right? Because as you invest in me, now all of a sudden you feel like you need to get back your investment, or you need to get your money's worth on that investment. And so you don't want me to walk away. You don't want me to leave you. And so you're constantly hoping that this relationship can work out. And when you're in hope that this can work out, I don't got to do anything more for you. I don't got to say anything more for you. I don't even have to put my best foot forward. So the men put that focus on sleeping with you as a way of making you feel like there's so much more depth to your relationship than there actually is. So number 5 here, let's just say for the sake of example, and don't worry, we're gonna get somewhere here. Let's say for the sake of example, when you were back in high school, right? I'm assuming none of you are still in high school. When you were back in high school and you had a class project to do that, you had a couple of weeks to do, right? There was, your teacher would give you the assignment, tell you how you're supposed to get it done, tell you what the requirements are, and tell you the due date. So there's a path forward towards that project, or towards finishing that project and accomplishing that project. Obviously, you got to take your little steps. You got to do your rough draft. You got to do your second draft. You got to do all these different things in order to finish up that project, okay? So you're here at the beginning of that project and you're trying to get here, which is why I drew a road, right? Like this is like your destination that you're trying to get to here. But in the process of procrastinating, right? When you know that you don't really want to do the project right now and you're just trying to look for other things that you can do instead of just working on the project because you're feeling a little bit lazy and you're procrastinating a little bit, instead of taking this straight line up to this project and getting it done and having it over with, you'll take a detour route over here and you'll start, let's say, cleaning. You'll take a detour route here and online shop, go to the club. And so there are so many detour routes that you'll take instead of just taking the straight line to the project, because you're procrastinating doing what you need to do to get your grade so that you can pass this class, that you can eventually graduate, okay? Because that's the end goal here. And the reason I give you this is because I want you to understand, for men, it can actually be the same thing here. See, men are supposed to have goals in their life. They're supposed to have a destination which they're trying to strive for, okay? They're supposed to, in the process of becoming a man, you have to protect and provide. So you have to be able to gather your resources and build your resources up, build your empire, your career, your lifestyle, so that eventually when you meet a woman, you can protect and provide for her. That is one of the main functions of men in relationships. What's gonna happen though for a lot of men, and this is a very interesting concept that I actually want you to pay attention to. Instead of doing this, right, focusing on their path forward to what they're supposed to be doing and getting done what matters in their life, instead, they will take detours that give them dopamine hits instead of doing what is mandatory of them if they're going to be a man in this world and be able to protect and provide. And one of the detours that they'll end up making is this is one of the main detours that men will take instead of doing what is actually important for the rest of their life that they need to be focused on, because if they don't get these things done, then they're not going to be where they need to be in their life. So men a lot of times will be looking for easy sex and what I describe as cheap thrills, meaning just the ability to just spend some time with someone, waste some time with someone, sleep with them, get the feeling of being like you're in a relationship, even though you actually shouldn't be doing that because you have more important things that you should be putting your focus on. And when they do this, right, it's an easy distraction from what they should be working on, right? Which is all these aspects, instead of it being a project in this case, these are the aspects of him as a man that he has yet to accomplish, or he has yet to reach that goal. Meaning whether it be in his career, whether it be in his business, whether it be for his life, whether it be anything that he is supposed to knows he's supposed to be doing and getting done for himself and in his life. Men will procrastinate doing that, and they'll use easy pineapples, easy sex as a distraction to be able to make themselves feel good instead of feeling like garbage about the fact that they're not where they know they're supposed to be, okay? Or where they think they should be. And a lot of times you'll find guys using you and using the process of sleeping with you, especially if you're someone that will sleep with him for free, as a distraction from getting those things done. Because the reality of it is, if he actually wanted to date and be with his dream woman, he would actually have to get a lot of this here done. He would have to get very close, if not already get to this destination here, in which in this case, in the analogy, it's the project. He would have to get to his destination, be able to have the resources, protect, provide, which just means make his money, have his career, have his profession, be a man, be emotionally intelligent, work on himself. He'd have to do so much work and investing into himself before he's even man enough to be with his dream woman. But if instead of working on those things to be the man for his dream woman, he can still get access to a woman with cheap thrills and easy sex, he will go and take this detour and veer out. And so sometimes you'll realize that the men in your life are so focused on that because, one, they might not have any substance within them, but they're also looking for their own distraction, which is exactly why I tell you guys when we have this show and when we talk in the show, I tell you guys when you're dating men to be asking them what they want for themselves, where they're at in their own life, and where they see themselves going. Because the men without direction and the men who are either not yet where they want to be or don't seem like they have a path forward will always be looking for a distraction. Because the hardest thing for men to do is to face themselves and say, I'm not who I think I am.